The following is produced by 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content.
Heard any good stock tips lately? Even if you're deaf or hard of hearing, special programs can help level the field of opportunity. Where there's fire, there's smoke, and it kills more often than flames. How do you protect yourself and your family? It's a fact. Some medicine is hard to swallow, but a new technology may help that problem melt away. They're known as bed sores or pressure ulcers, and if you're bedridden, they're a constant risk, but they can be prevented. Get right to the heart of matters affecting your life today on Today's Health.
Getting through life day to day is hard enough without having to cope with a disability. But millions of people must deal with impairments in their vision, hearing, speech, or mobility, as well as everything else that life throws at them. Hello, I'm Kathleen Sullivan, and this is Today's Health. Those of us with all of our faculties often complain that life is tough, but oh, it can be so much tougher.
Communication. You can't overstate its importance in the world today. The ability to pick up the phone and communicate easily can often help us through many of life's challenges. But what happens when the challenge is to speak or hear? Currently in the United States, there are nearly 2 million people who are deaf and about 18 million who are hard of hearing. You probably don't even think twice about the simple act of calling for a pizza delivery. But if you're deaf, hard of hearing, or speech impaired, that everyday meal option doesn't always exist.
I would ask one of my next door neighbors to make a phone call for me. I'd make the necessary discussions through my neighbor, and of course, neighbors can be nosy sometimes, and that was very humbling.
Sometimes people with disabilities take the lead in helping others in a similar situation. Take Chris Sullivan, for example. He's a deaf vice president at Merrill Lynch. He realized there were others like him who found it difficult to do something as simple as invest their savings. And he pioneered a whole new unit of the company to fill that need, the Deaf Hard of Hearing Investor Services Division.
When I became an analyst on Wall Street, I knew how difficult it was for many deaf people to do business with their financial advisors. And so that's why I set up a program to specifically address their needs. So I made this proposal to the senior management, and they were more than supportive. And we have set up teacher-wise in various facilities all over the country, as well as 13 toll-free teacher-wide amplification lines, so that deaf and hard of hearing people can be accessible to the firm.
Since Chris launched the Deaf Hard of Hearing program, it's expanded nationwide. The company now manages over $250 million in assets for deaf or hard of hearing clients.
We have 5 deaf financial consultants serving both deaf and hearing clients. And we also have over several hundred hearing financial consultants who also have deaf and hard of hearing clients on their books. You can't imagine what a relief it is for many deaf people to have the ability to communicate over phone line with just about anybody.
Buy, sell, trade. Successfully navigating the financial markets is difficult enough when you can hear the tick of the ticker tape. It doesn't matter whether you're a bull or a bear. The easier it is to communicate, the easier it is to analyze your options and take your best shot.
Whether you want to become a wizard of Wall Street or simply build a nest egg for tomorrow, a disability should not affect your opportunity to the right investments. Fortunately, modern technology and special programs can now help level the playing field for people who have an impairment.
How many times a day do you use the telephone? It used to be if you were deaf, speech impaired, or hard of hearing, this everyday tool could be a difficult or even useless means of communication. But now, federal law has changed that. Addressing one of the four major components of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, the telecommunication industry was required to set up the telephone relay service so that people with hearing and speech impairments could have equal access.
And it allows deaf and hard of hearing people especially to have the freedom to communicate with just about anybody.
I can call our financial counselors who are deaf, like me. It's very important to the deaf community to have other people working out in the community like us.
When someone calls the relay service, a specially trained relay operator acts as a facilitator. If the person calling is speech impaired, the operator reads off the teletype and voices the conversation. If the calling person cannot hear, the relay operator types what the other party is saying.
The relay is like the invention of the wheel for the deaf community. Never before could we place an order for a pizza or calling up your financial consultant to discuss your financial security. So it's made a tremendous difference in the lives of so many deaf and hard of hearing people today.
Teletypewriters, called TTYs, allow a caller to type and read as they hold a conversation. The operator does not act like an interpreter. He or she voices and types verbatim whatever is said. Carryover lines, one called a VCO or a voice carryover, allows an oral deaf person to speak for themselves. The other, an HCO or hearing carryover, allows the speech impaired user to hear what's being said.
I'm really proud that we at Merrill utilize this service for the benefit of communicating with our clients.
Our financial well-being and security can have a significant impact on how we feel. Programs, equipment, and services that empower people with impairments can give them equal access to all investment options, so that their only challenge is picking a winner.
Are you ready for a fire? What's your escape plan? A smoke-filled room is no place to have to think about it. What precautions should you take to protect yourself and your family? Up next on Today's Health.
How many of us are really prepared for something as simple as fire in our home? We may not like to think of the inevitable or plan for disasters, but if we don't, our dreams can go up in smoke.
A single-family home, a 3-alarm blaze, a death race to safety. In the U.S. alone, about 2.5 million fires account for over 4,700 deaths a year, and tens of thousands of serious injuries that later affect the victim's quality of life. Most of these tragedies occur in 1- and 2-story homes, and 8 out of 10 times it's smoke inhalation that kills, not burns from the flames.
Victims of smoke inhalation suffer from the soot particulates that can coat the linings of the throat and the lungs, and also the effects of lethal gases that are breathed in at the same time. A large number of the most lethal gases, such as hydrogen cyanide and hydrogen chloride, come from chemicals that are in the plastics in our modern environment.
Fires were something that happened to other people, not to me. I noticed that I was breathing in something that was very, very foreign, but that was only in my subconscious. My conscious mind was focused totally on how am I going to get through this black curtain of smoke. It was impossible to see. I couldn't see my hand in front of my nose.
Every family should ensure that they have at least 2 exits from their home, and preferably 2 exits from each room within the home. And they should also ensure that the smoke detectors are in working order. That means changing the batteries on a regular basis, perhaps at the change of seasons when clocks are set ahead or set back. And, of course, ensure that the fire department is called at the earliest possible time. In addition, the use of smoke hoods for personal respiratory protection is a significant added advantage to ensure safe escape from fire.
This emergency escape smoke hood, the Evacuate, developed by Brookdale International Systems, can quickly slip over a person's head and help them to breathe and move freely through the blinding, toxic smoke. A mouthpiece attached to an air filtration unit allows you to breathe filtered air during your escape.
Breathing through a properly designed and tested smoke hood will allow the wearer to move through a smoky, potentially lethal environment to arrive at a safe egress point.
When the firemen came and gave me some oxygen and had me wipe out my mouth and my nose areas, it was black.
The best way to ensure escape from fire is to stay rational, keep yourself out of the smoke, and if you have no other choice, to move through the smoke with a personal protective device.
No one expects a fire, but everyone should be prepared for it. Because if a fire starts, the difference between an emergency and a tragedy could be how well you plan your escape.
Great medicine can taste horrible, and some pills may be tough to swallow, but innovative drug technology may help dissolve that problem. Can tablets that melt make good medicine easier to take? Find out when we return on Today's Health.
A miracle drug can't work miracles unless someone takes it properly. And all too often, patients, especially children and geriatrics, have the right dosage, but who can make that pill easier to swallow?
Nicholas, it's time for your medicine. Come on, sweetheart, it's not that bad. Nicholas, where are you? Nick? Nicholas?
It's the age-old conflict of wit against wile, a frustrated parent with a dose of medicine versus a stubborn child who refuses to take it. But when it comes to taking foul-tasting medicine and swallowing pills, kids aren't the only ones who have trouble. Many elderly patients cannot get a pill or capsule down either, and even adults can have trouble swallowing.
Giving a patient a prescription does not necessarily mean the patient is going to comply with the doctor's instructions. In fact, most of the time, patients stop taking their medications before their recommended course of therapy has expired. This is especially dangerous in patients with hypertension who may be at risk for developing a stroke or heart attack, and when dealing with asthmatic patients.
In order to improve patient compliance, an innovative drug delivery system may help. These melt tabs, developed by SEMA Labs with a technology called Orasolve, are tablets that melt on the tongue in about 30 seconds or less. The saliva triggers an effervescent response, which breaks down the tablet into tiny molecules which can be swallowed as easily as saliva. We've all heard of a spoonful of sugar helping the medicine go down. Well, this new technology encapsulates the actual drug with a good taste to mask the unpleasant flavor of the medication.
There is some difficulty when measuring liquid medications, which are usually given to children. Not all teaspoons are alike. It is beneficial to the patient to use medication in pill form because we are almost certain that they will receive the entire amount. There will not be any spillage. If a medication becomes available that can be dissolved in the mouth, mixes with saliva, and is easily swallowed, that certainly would be advantageous to patients, which would eliminate the swallowing difficulties that are present with tablets and capsules.
Nick, it's time for your medicine. What's it taste like?
Mom, this is bubblegum.
A good medicine can have a terrible taste, and many pills are hard to swallow. But if a drug can be delivered in a form that's easier to take, it may be a lot less difficult to follow just what the doctor ordered.
It's tough enough to be confined to a bed or wheelchair, but a pressure ulcer can make it unbearable, even deadly. Why are juries screaming malpractice? And what can be done to prevent these tragic wounds? Stay with us on Today's Health.
When caring for someone who is confined to a sickbed or a wheelchair, caregivers must constantly watch out for the development of pressure ulcers, sometimes called bed sores. Now, these wounds can be very painful, and if infected, they can even become deadly.
Some people may joke about the old folks' home, but if you ever have to live in a long-term nursing facility, it's no laughing matter. Old age, diabetes, arthritis, and other conditions can immobilize a person and confine them to a bed or wheelchair. And that confinement can put a person at constant risk for pressure ulcers, commonly known as bed sores. It's a shocking statistic, but 24% of nursing home residents will develop pressure ulcers. The cost to treat a pressure ulcer can range between $5,000 to $50,000.
It's caused by immobility. There are many factors that enter in, but it's primarily immobility of a patient who is lying on a bony prominence and decreases blood flow and causes death of the tissue, actually.
The discomfort and intense pain of a pressure ulcer add a great deal of suffering to someone who's already having a difficult time. In many cases, they can become infected and could become fatal. Malpractice juries agree that pressure ulcers can and should be prevented and have awarded patients or their families damages ranging from hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions. In order to improve care, maintain national legal standards, and limit potential malpractice liability, many nursing homes are adopting a preventative skincare system. This consultant from Smith & Nephew United specializes in treating wounds and designing skincare programs to prevent pressure ulcers.
One of the most definitive studies that's been done on documenting the occurrence of skin breakdown by implementing a prevention program was completed in '93, and it was done at a local nursing home in Miami. It's called Hampton Court. We implemented the program, and within 8 months we had reduced the occurrence to less than 0.9%. We demonstrated a savings of about $240,000 to the facility.
In the event that a pressure ulcer develops, advanced wound care products are available that can help promote and encourage healing.
If it is caused by pressure, the first thing we have to do is relieve the pressure. Turn them off of that area so that the blood flow can be restored. And then we use different types of dressings. And these dressings create and maintain a moist wound environment.
No one wants to be in a nursing home, and the decision to admit a loved one to a long-term nursing facility can be filled with feelings of guilt, sadness, and regret. If the patient can be spared any additional suffering, we will all feel a lot better.
And now let's turn to another related story about our skin, which is our largest breathing organ. The skin provides the first layer of defense against disease and infection, but as we get older, our skin doesn't function as efficiently as it used to. After age 60, proper skin care is very important, but if you're bedridden, it can be a matter of life and death.
In healthcare, properly treating wounds has always been a top priority. Now, preventing wounds has also become a primary goal of many long-term care providers. The key to prevention in the case of pressure ulcers lies in the ability to identify who is most at risk, and then to design a prevention and early intervention treatment protocol that can help eliminate the factors causing pressure ulcers.
First of all, we have to determine the etiology of the wound. Is it caused by a pressure ulcer or mechanical disturbance? Is it a venous problem? Is it a diabetic problem? Treat the patient first, and then treat the wound.
A successful prevention program starts by assessing the situation and the patients, and then designing a protocol or routine that includes proper skin care, regular inspection, and rapid intervention if a sore begins to develop. In nursing homes which adopt regular skin care programs, the incidence of pressure ulcers may drop dramatically from the national average of 24%. A pressure ulcer can be spotted in its first stage as a red, irritated spot on the skin. If left untreated, it can quickly progress to a stage 4 pressure ulcer, which means damage to muscle tendons or bones.
We need to use a system that will cleanse, moisturize, and protect. So we're going to use a gentle, no-rinse, spray-on cleanser that's non-traumatic, and then the next step is to use a barrier, a protective barrier, so that moisture can't get through to the skin.
Material and design innovations, like in this 3-layer Aleven dressing, can control the amount of moisture at the surface of the healing tissues.
It's absolutely imperative that nursing staff, any direct patient care provider, be educated, and I'm including in that physical therapists, nurses, nurses' aides, social workers, physicians, anybody, and family needs to be educated. A specific strategy or protocol for prevention and management of chronic wounds in long-term care is absolutely critical. We need to react proactively right now, set up our prevention programs, which also include treatment.
Our society often prides itself in the way it offers comfort, care, and support for the aged, helpless, and vulnerable. Properly preventing or treating wounds for people confined to beds and wheelchairs can be an important step toward preserving their quality of life.
I need not remind you that life is a constant challenge, and sometimes we may need the help of others, and sometimes we may have to give it. But if we all let compassion and understanding be our guide, it may be a little easier for all of us to get by. I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Join us again next time as we get right to the heart of matters affecting your life on Today's Health.
To purchase a complete written transcript or a videotape copy of this or any edition of Today's Health, write to this address or call 1-800-877-7769.
This has been a presentation of 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content.